While everyone discusses Avengers Doomsday and the Marvel Entertainment Channel's countdown, few seem interested in the movie Doomsday is promoting. It's likely the biggest milestone in modern comic book history, at least until one of the top insiders dropped a bombshell. Daniel RPK reports Marvel may again split Avengers Secret Wars into two parts. I repeat, before the Multiverse saga collapsed, that was the plan. The trademark for a third film in addition to Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars had been registered, and it was Avengers Eternity War. And how could you not be excited about this idea? I already told you, the Secret Wars run is an absolutely epic adventure. It could make this Marvel trilogy one of the most legendary, with Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Pirates of the Caribbean, and major pop culture myths. It solves all the Multiverse saga's issues and, more importantly, fixes Doom's story. Make Doomsday a standalone film centered on its plot with a mysterious antagonist, while Secret Wars can further develop Doom and set up the sequel. In this video, we revisit why Secret Wars is a generational epic. Also, the OMCU is already preparing us, moving its pieces forward step by step, to make it one of the greatest cinematic adventures, from God Emperor Doom to a land ruled by legendary villains, with armies of the dead and Thors. Not to mention the crucial role of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. We're going to break everything down. And after that, the wait might be even harder. Because I really wanted to save this video for the right moment. And I think you're ready. That's why we're entering the spoiler zone, the danger zone. You are, along with Kevin Buckart, your favorite theorist's favorite theorist. Avengers has become a trilogy and even a running joke between us. Still, given the huge stakes Avengers Doomsday should have, explaining the multiverse and incursions, introducing new characters and bringing back old ones like Steve Rogers, the introduction of Doom, his story, his goals, and especially the reason why he has Stark's face. I couldn't see how all that would fit in one movie or how we could move on so quickly. From his introduction to the end of the multiverse, then to his rise as God Emperor of a new world shaped in his image. For me, it was unthinkable to introduce the most legendary character in Marvel lore in such a short time without taking the time to develop the extremely complex lore surrounding the Hickman run. At first, I thought Marvel would make Avengers Secret Wars a two-part film, dedicating all of Phase 7 to Battleworld. Well, that was clearly my nerd fantasy at the time. A fantasy that today doesn't seem so crazy, apparently. Then, with the repeated delays and the fact that, little by little, my shows were getting cancelled. I started hoping for at least a two-part Doomsday, though I never really believed in an Avengers Doomsday Part 2. I thought Doctor Strange 3, Time Runs Out, would have been the ideal bridge between Doomsday and Secret Wars. First, to tell what happened to Strange in that story, but also to understand what we had just experienced in Doomsday. That rushed apocalypse, that odd character with Stark's face who deceived everyone with Strange's help, still nothing. So I had to accept the idea that Marvel wanted to move on quickly, leave the multiverse saga and all its missed opportunities behind to move on to something else as soon as possible. But I think Kevin Feige and Marvel themselves were surprised by the excitement generated by their early marketing campaign, and it seems by the buzz from the streams. The 4 teasers, which objectively don't show much, were reportedly viewed nearly 1 billion times combined. So, yes, that's totally unverifiable. Let's be clear, one thing is certain, we've had a wild month of excitement. Even though we all expected Doomsday to spark hype again, including among those who had jumped ship, no one expected it to start off this strong. Right away, and just as everyone realized there wouldn't be a 5th teaser and the hype was starting to slowly die down. John Rocha revealed on Hot Mic that, according to a reliable source, Marvel may turn Secret Wars into a 2-part movie. What he hadn't anticipated was that this information would spread all over the web in just a few hours, to the point that he actually deleted the video, which definitely looks like a big blunder, but no worries. The very reliable insider Daniel Epeka came to his rescue and also confirmed the information on his Patreon. Yes, Marvel is reportedly reconsidering the idea of making Secret Wars the event it deserves to be, and that's excellent news. First, because you'll stop messing around, but mainly because that was the original plan. Unlike Doomsday, which has generated buzz since its 2024 announcement, Secret Wars has received little attention despite being announced in 2022. Here's why. This project has been in development for nearly a decade. While the Russo team worked on Infinity War, Kevin Feige was already planning the next steps. The book The Reign of Marvel Studios by Johanna Robinson, released in 2023, explains all this well. In 2027, Disney begins the acquisition of Fox, and with it, the return of the Fantastic Four and the X-Men to the family. Extremely important characters. He began his career with the first Fox adaptations and always dreamed of creating a universe uniting all Marvel characters, faithful to the comics. And finally, he tells himself that he's going to be able to do it, so he has to find a way to pay tribute to this legacy while launching this universe without it being completely illogical. That's where the idea for the Multiverse saga was born, according to Stephen McFeely, screenwriter of Infinity War, Endgame, and now Doomsday and Secret Wars. While collaborating with Feige for months, he focused solely on the logical next step, the only run that could surpass their work. Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman was released 2 years before, and after the Russo brothers' film succeeded, the directors hinted at adapting it.
One of the series we loved growing up is Secret Wars. It's incredibly ambitious, and even bigger than Infinity War and Endgame. It's a massive adaptation. Can you imagine making 2 movies even bigger than those? You know, maybe we'll take a little break.
They joked they'd rest 5 years, then return for Secret Wars. At the time, it seemed like a joke since 1984 Secret Wars is their favorite childhood comic. But also, very clearly, it might seem like a way for Feige to test the waters because even though he doesn't say much, Kevin Feige is a formidable strategist when it comes to communication, just like he did back then with the Russo brothers. By letting them speak freely on the subject, there's no doubt today that the information that comes out is also used to test the public's reaction. The plan in recent months was to quickly finish the Multiverse saga. With 2 major movies that could overshadow everything else, plus the upcoming X-Men. By the way, we recently learned that the boss of Marvel is currently only working on his Avengers movies, leaving total control of Spider-Man to Destin, Daniel Cretton and Amy Pascal. This shows how much he values his projects. However, things may have changed recently. Management might view this as a chance to make history with a major trilogy. A trilogy spotlighting the X-Men, original Avengers, and the entire Marvel legacy before finally closing that chapter for good. But then does it really make sense to do it? I think that to understand the scale of this event, we need to go back to Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars comics. When we talk about Secret Wars, there can be some confusion, simply because there are 2 of them. The first one, called Les Guerres Secrètes in French, came out in 1984. It was the very first major crossover in Marvel Comics. And at the time, it was a real success, so we're not going to dwell on it today. But to sum up, a higher being. The Beyonder gathers top heroes and iconic villains. On Battleworld, a planet formed from fragments of many worlds, heroes and villains battle each other. The rule is simple, the winner gets whatever they want. It's essentially a battle royale. There's a lot to take from this comic, but as I was saying, that's not today's topic. We're going to focus on Jonathan Hickman's version, released in 2015. You can find this comic and a full reading guide on my website. Let's return to Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman. To grasp the story, let's dive in. Obviously, we're going to totally spoil the comic, just so you know, you can skip to the time code right here. I've already talked to you at length about the previous arc, Time Runs Out. I've kept this story aside until now. It picks up right after Time Runs Out. The last 2 universes of the dying multiverse are colliding, Earth 616, the main Marvel universe, and Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. A series started in the early 2000s to reboot Marvel characters, inspiring much of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. During the final incursion, the Ultimate Universe directly attacks 616. Cyclops unleashes the power of the Phoenix to try to stop them, but he can't prevent the inevitable. He joins a few heroes in a lifeboat built by Reed Richards to survive the end. Sadly, Reed's whole family is lost to the void as the multiverse ends. Doom, the Molecule Man, and Doctor Strange trap the Beyonders at the multiverse's cradle. With Molecule Man's help, Doom absorbed their power and saved the multiverse's remnants. He then forms Battleworld, a medieval realm built from the remnants of the known multiverse. 40 regions, all ruled with an iron fist by governors who are all subservient to Doom, who has become the god sovereign of these lands. I will make dedicated videos about these territories in due time. But for example, you can find Greenland, a land of Hulks ruled by Maestro, the domain of Apocalypse, and the sinister Spider Island ruled by the Spider Queen. The Monarchy M, where House of M events are frozen and King Magneto rules, the Hydra Empire, a dystopia where Hydra won, the War Zone where Captain and Iron Man keep fighting, and more. In short, it's a real sandbox. Absolutely anything is possible. Doom resides in his castle above his kingdom, with his throne beneath Yggdrasil and his family, Sue, Franklin, and Valeria, by his side. None of them remembers the world before. To them, it's always been this way. Johnny became a sun, and Ben turned into a wall guarding the kingdom. From the lands of the dead, Ultron's hordes, and the Annihilus wave, only 3 remember life before Doom. His sheriff, Strange, secretly powers him from beneath the castle, the Molecule Man. These people lived like this for months until the Thor Corps, the kingdom's police, found a strange ship. Inside is the Cabal, an anti-Illuminati group consisting of Thanos, Proxima Midnight, Corvus Glaive, Maximus of the Inhumans, Namor, and Terrax. The Maker, the evil Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe, kills the Thor Corps and escapes. When Strange arrives, he finds Miles Morales hiding in the raft and remembering the previous world. Strange takes him to another ship, found months ago but kept secret from Doom. Inside is Captain Marvel Los Angeles. Mighty Thor, Jane Foster, Peter Parker, Star-Lord, Reed Richards, Black Panther, and Cyclops. Still empowered by the Phoenix, they all recall the multiverse's end as their last memory. Everyone gathers, Doom arrives, and Scott attacks Doom with the Phoenix's full power, which has absolutely no effect on the god. Victor breaks his neck as if it were nothing. Strange then uses his magic to scatter everyone to the 4 corners of Battleworld. He won't let Doom kill them, a choice that costs him his life. A ceremony is held in his honor, and the sheriff is said to have been killed by the intruders. Valeria is skeptical, so she investigates and finds Peter and Miles. Trusting them, she introduces them to Molecule Man. The rebellion and the hunt then begin. Jane Foster infiltrates the Thors, while Namor and T'Challa, who hate each other, end up investigating together. Carol Danvers is captured by Mr. Sinister. Seeking revenge on Doom, Thanos approaches the wall as the Reeds try to learn how Doom got his powers. And Maximus, the genius, a sort of messiah who is starting a rebellion, and that's where it gets extremely interesting. Similar to great epics like The Lord of the Rings, we follow various characters on their quests, each causing chaos and exploring this world's curiosities and adventures. T'Challa, as the King of the Dead, leads an army of zombies, the Infinity Gauntlet in hand. Carol Danvers and Sinister betray the Barons one after another to take back their territory. Star-Lord even goes so far as to implant a Groot scarf to regain control of Yggdrasil and create a giant Groot who will fight the hordes of Hulk. In short, all of that is just in the main run, because all the tie-ins are absolutely incredible. Clearly, we're dealing with a story that's somewhere between Game of Thrones and The Lord of the Rings, but with superheroes and totally crazy, impossible to sum up in a single movie. Especially since we know the streams won't end there. They'll draw inspiration from the 84 run Avengers Forever, and possibly from stories like Children's Crusade or House of M. In short, it's madness. A masterful success with a brilliant ending, which I won't spoil, but it also brought major problems for Marvel. Because the writer had a really hard time finishing this story, falling way behind schedule. Delays from trying to avoid a disappointing conclusion, like Game of Thrones, put Marvel in a tough spot. The follow-up was already ready, and after months and months of Secret Wars, they needed a smooth transition. So Marvel decided to release the post-Secret Wars issues even before the story was finished. That decision reset everything and ended Marvel's dominant era. People avoided new issues to avoid spoilers. Big Man, an architect by training, wrote a story so complex and captivating that he literally stopped time for the readers. Marvel wasn't being read until its conclusion was released. The Marvel Cinematic Universe must avoid repeating these past mistakes. A very fragile plan, obviously. After all I just said, we'd sign up for Battleworld right away, but the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is already moving forward. Blade appears to have been firmly chosen for inclusion in a movie. Midnight Suns and Black Panther 3 start filming this year, with the X-Men likely releasing after in 2028. Avengers Secret Wars is the only Marvel movie set for 2027. But it seems very hard to imagine a double release that year, with filming starting between April and June of this year, right after the Doomsday reshoots. So, what are the options? If Marvel is really considering 2 parts easily, they can't repeat the mistake from the comics. The sequel will absolutely have to wait for the release of the second installment. Daniel RPK said the decision depends on Doomsday's success, but honestly, I think that's complete bullshit. The decision is already made, so I don't know what he means. He's just playing on emotions. Basically, if you want the sequel, go watch Doomsday 65 times. Realistically, they're not planning a last-minute shoot, are they? If there are two movies, both must be part of the initial shooting schedule, which can't be improvised. This isn't a closed set film, but a massive ensemble movie. Doomsday already has a huge cast, and that's not even counting Secret Wars, which will feature every possible variant, so I think scheduling is already set, but that's what makes it interesting. Marvel actually had room for more movies in 2026 and 2027, but chose not to add them. Currently, only two movies are planned, Spider-Man by Sony and Amy Pascal. Besides Daredevil Season 3, nothing else is announced for 2027. We learned this week that Kevin Feige has spent the past year fully focused on the Avengers movies, so this decision may have been made long ago. Remember, in 2022, when Disney decided to bet on Kang with Kang Dynasty and they announced Secret Wars, Michael Waldron joined the project to finalize the script. McFeely will replace him once Kang is replaced by Doom. The Russo brothers may return and Waldron will stay on as a consultant. So the story was probably reworked, but the main plot already exists. I think there have been two options on the table for a long time now. The first, a single movie that gets straight to the point. The Avengers awaken in this world and seek allies for a major battle. However, there's also a two-part second option. We focus on developing characters and the secondary arcs important to the Russo brothers, while also getting to know Doom better and saying goodbye to this universe to welcome a new one. And it wouldn't be the first time it works like this. Let's recall that Avengers Infinity War was initially planned as a two-part film, but it was refocused so Endgame could serve as a more dramatic, distinct conclusion, likely anticipating Secret Wars. This decision wasn't made quickly. Everything was planned out in detail before filming. Contrary to the urban legend, there's no 5-hour version of the films, just a few minor cuts totaling about 10 minutes. But what about the 2028 dates? It's impossible to imagine that the post-reset films would come out before a possible part 2, so can Marvel really afford once again to lose the February and May slots? Focusing 3 major Avengers movies over 3 straight years? Honestly, I don't have the answer. On one hand, a 2-part conclusion would be absolutely incredible, but on the other hand, I have a hard time imagining Marvel giving up 2 more movies, especially knowing that Bob Iger wasn't super happy about it. Such an empty schedule in 2026 and 2027, unless it's for the Battleworld phase. In my last video, I explained to you why. Avengers Doomsday may focus more on the Avengers' chaotic legacy than on Doom himself. Their choices caused the end of the multiverse, which most insider reports support. The movie wouldn't explain why Doom looks like Tony Stark, and Robert Downey Jr. would again wear his mask for most of the film. Let's remember, the Russo brothers say he's the only one who can play this role. His fee for playing Dr. Doom would be about $100 million, making him the highest paid actor per film ever. For comparison, on Infinity War and Endgame, he earned about $40 million, which is 2.5 times less. Although George Brolin, who played Thanos, had the most screen time, he only made about $10 million for both films, despite his significant presence. Robert Downey Jr. is a big star now and has since won an Oscar, but he was already famous during Endgame. That's why, for years, there has been a lot of speculation about his real involvement in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the long term. According to a report at the time by Daniel Arpica, Robert Downey Jr. filmed for almost 3 full months on set, while most of the other actors were only there for 3 to 6 weeks, depending on their role. And sure, unlike Infinity War and Endgame, which were filmed back-to-back, here there's a small gap between the shoots, but nothing indicates that part of Secret Wars hasn't already been filmed. As I was saying, Doom's origins and the reason why he looks like Tony Stark shouldn't be addressed in Doomsday, but rather in Secret Wars, and it's entirely possible that a large part of that segment has already been filmed, or even completed. And that, in reality, changes a lot of things. Because if Marvel is really considering making Secret Wars in 2 parts, they clearly didn't wait for the results of Doomsday to think about it. I'm telling you, it's impossible. They already had clear signs of anticipation for this movie, with concept art leaks proving it. Personally, I still think it's an artist who just wasn't very lucky and was a bit careless, but it's true. We can also imagine that Marvel intentionally let these elements leak. Whatever the case, the result is the same. Fans all over the world were blown away. A medieval movie like Game of Thrones, with Hulk villages, a new Black Panther, and a royal doom. It broke the internet. What if the 2028 dates already included Secret Wars Part 2 from the beginning, possibly on Marvel's main May date instead of November? Allowing a few months to develop a Battleworld film and some series. Because Secret Wars, as the Russo brothers said, is a renewal, a beginning. Making it just one film would be like telling a simple story of good guys versus bad guys. If we view it as a trilogy, everything changes. Let's say Doomsday marks the Avengers' inevitable end, making them accountable. In contrast, Doom would serve as a warning. A force advancing with the inevitable end of the multiverse. He's worked on his plan so long, the others are already too late. The character is introduced, his power is there, but no one really knows who he is. We have Laura, not yet. The lore comes in, then Secret Wars, in 2 parts. The movie gradually introduces this new world and its rules, and like the comics, survivors such as Shuri, Reed, Sam, Bucky, Cyclops, Namor, Star-Lord, and the Young Avengers reappear. We can even imagine the return of Peter, Hulk, and Sadie Sink at that moment. Rumors mention an adaptation of The Raft from the comics using the Raft prison. And I actually think that the end of Spider-Man could lead the Department of Damage Control to arrest Hulk, Spidey, and Sadie Sink's character. To send them, not to their own prison, which was made unusable by Wonder Man, but to the Raft. And this Sadie Sink? I'm more and more convinced that she's playing Jean Grey. Her role would be absolutely central in this story. She would be the one to restore the heroes' memories and start the rebellion, kind of like in House of M. At the same time, there would be the team of exiles from the Void with Deadpool, Wolverine, and possibly Tobey Maguire's Peter. X-Men 3 Blade and others would be scattered across Battleworld, letting each character be further developed. Because Secret Wars must correct all the Multiverse saga's mistakes. This saga failed to make us truly love these characters, and it makes sense. No Avengers movie existed in the Infinity Saga. Those films made the characters legendary and built that emotional connection. Secret Wars has to do exactly the same thing. Give strength back to those who will remain. Introduce the ones of tomorrow, especially with some new X-Men. But it also needs to take the time to reveal Doom. This trilogy would then add depth to his mysticism in Doomsday. From there, several side quests could emerge. Shuri could find the new Black Panther and fully develop her role as the Priestess of the Dead. Sam finally becomes the Captain America he deserves. Reed confronts his mad variant, the Maker, and Peter discovers the symbiote, becoming Black Spider-Man, which greatly affects his trilogy. A 3-part story to fix 6 years of weak storytelling and start a new era. Characters whose development we actually want to follow. But that's not all, because in reality, the projects from 2028 could be integrated into this trilogy. We're discussing X-Men, Black Panther, and Midnight Suns, but there's also been talk of a Hulk or Thor project by George Miller. Yes, the creator of Mad Max, a director who fits Battleworld style perfectly. Plus, possible Doctor Strange 3 or Shang-Chi 2, why not? Many projects could link films within Battleworld. However, new last-minute news might change everything. Ryan Reynolds said he's working on Deadpool 4, especially after Deadpool and Wolverine made over $1.3 billion at the box office and was produced in about a year. You quickly see why this option is suddenly obvious. A Deadpool 4 movie wouldn't just be another sequel, it would be the ideal surprise to fully exploit an unleashed Battleworld. Deadpool is literally the only character capable of existing in a world without rules, without strict coherence, without visual or narrative limits. All while staying perfectly consistent with his DNA. A crazy Battleworld, filled with variants, absurd territories, mythical figures, and shattered realities. It's his natural playground. As for series, nothing is officially planned for 2027 and 2028. The only rumors are about Strange Academy and Champions, 2 projects that could also fit perfectly into this environment. For example, Strange Academy could become the school run by Strange. In this new world of sorcerers, Champions could adapt the Children Crusade arc, where Billy and Tommy try to rescue their mother from doom. What better time to tell that story? Now we know the Territory Barons would be evil versions of familiar characters. A few months ago, Paul from Heavy Spoilers reportedly said Scarlett Johansson would return in Black Widow. But on Doom's side, we could finally have Doom's generals, the famous Dark Avengers, Captain Hydra, Maestro, King, Thanos, who, by the way, is almost confirmed. Evil Black Widow, an Iron Man turned dictator inspired by a civil war gone wrong, or maybe even the return of Ultron or Killmonger. Yes, it's huge, but there's still one essential thing. Even though the Russo brothers talk about this movie as a beginning, it's above all a conclusion, the end of the Avengers era. So no, the name isn't going to disappear. This saga's end marks the close of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we knew it, starting a new era. Secret War's conclusion should lead us into the next phase of this new world. It needs to hint at the X-Men, Wakanda's future, and the Young Avengers. You can't do all that in 10 minutes. Endings like those in Stranger Things or The Lord of the Rings need to take their time, move us, and maybe make us cry. That's the only way. We need a second movie, Secret Wars in December 2027 and Deadpool 4 in early 2028 as a bridge film. Secret Wars Part 2 could release in May or November 2028. Why not schedule Black Panther 3 or another big project for May instead? In short, that would be really big, otherwise, yes, everything will seem rushed. Kind of like it was at the end of Doomsday, which never really set up what comes next. And we saw how that turned out. And I have to be honest, at the beginning of this video, I didn't really see how this rumor could actually happen. But now, honestly, I just don't see how Secret Wars could exist without a second part. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video and are new here, I analyze and theorize about pop culture, especially Marvel, every week. Subscribe for more. We'll see each other next week, same day, same time. In the meantime, don't forget to stay curious. That's the secret to being happy. Bye.